Hello, everyone. I'm Nick Bradley.
And I'm Dave Bales. Welcome back to Not the Situation Room.
Everyone has a price. That's a direct quote from Ted, the Million Dollar Man DiBiase. Except, of course, we can't be bought.
Well, I mean, it depends on what you're asking for, Nick. There are a lot of things I'd sell for the right amount of money, but nothing as serious as excuse me, the subject of today's story.
That would be Zuao Nazareno Roku. And yes, I had to look up how to pronounce that.
That's the one. Now, this is a special kind of criminal. Or is he? Maybe he's just the latest in a long line of threats that don't get enough attention. The insider type.
Right. Well, we always hear stories about nation state actors or the big track named bad actor groups, but we don't really hear much about insider threat. Roca actually worked at a payment solutions provider that dealt with the victim banks in question and successfully enabled the theft of $140 million. How, you ask? Dave, you have the answer, don't
I do. With his access and for the paltry sum of, wait for it, $920.
you?
Bet you thought more was coming, right? He sold his credentials in order to allow an actor or actors to infiltrate a series of banks, steal the money, distribute it to offshore accounts, which were under the attacker's control.
Oh, he did more than that. He managed to successfully, at least for a short period of time, avoid capture, changing phones every 2 weeks.
Was he on the Apple ecosystem and their rapid release of new phones?
Pretty sure they were burner phones, Dave.
Of course they were. Like a crack dealer. So this guy sells his creds, goes down to the corner drugstore and buys, let's say, 10 phones, and then goes and hides in the dark.
It's almost as if you were there.
Maybe.
But yes, he did his best to stay off the radar. Guess what, though? It didn't work.
Of course
And
not.
wait, no, there's more.
Oh.
After the information was confirmed, he did get another paycheck for $1,850.
Whoa, big spender.
Mhm.
That doesn't even cover the cost of the phones. He did all this for a few pennies in his pocket now?
Well, he did have to perform some specific instructions in order to get paid the extra cash.
Like what?
Well,
What's worth $1,900?
I wasn't there, but they were apparently successful. It was the unknown actions that allowed the attackers to infiltrate the internal infrastructure of this company and then transfer the 140 million.
But all good things must end, though, and 248 years, 364 days from the U.S. birthday on July 3rd, he was apprehended in Sao Paulo. It has nothing to do with America's birthday, but
No.
I thought it was funny.
And for the sum of $2,770, this individual is probably going to spend the rest of his life in a Brazilian prison.
How was he picked, you ask? Well, he was leaving a bar.
Mhm.
It's not really as simple as that. It seems like he was targeted for this operation because he was vulnerable to coercion.
Obviously, we can't prove it, but yeah, there might have been more than just money involved to get him to play ball.
Well, let me quote the story from interpreter.org. So this might clear up a few things on the next actions. New information has emerged regarding the movement of the stolen funds. Blockchain analyst Zach XBT reported that the attackers had already laundered between 30 million and 40 million into cryptocurrency utilizing Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Tether. These transactions were funneled through a web of exchanges and anonymous over-the-counter platforms across Latin America. The analyst also confirmed that he is actively tracking the attackers' wallets and
Hmm.
assisting law enforcement in freezing their assets. What a
Well,
great guy. He actually is trying to help.
right. Well, see how it goes.
Yeah.
The good news for the victim company that was used, though, is there was no vulnerability in the company's systems that facilitated the infiltration and theft. It was simple social engineering and manipulation.
Well, they also stated that their internal security system swiftly detected the access, but here's where I start to scratch my head. They notified local authorities instead of stopping the attack. Now, that's conjecture because it's not specifically stated except for the part that they notified local authorities. So we can only assume that they didn't stop it.
Right. Well, again, like we said, it's conjecture because we don't know. Because
Yeah.
maybe they couldn't stop the attack, right? Or maybe by the time they caught it, the damage had been done, and maybe they didn't let it go any further. There's a lot of details missing at this time, and I would say that's usually expected with active investigations.
And we got to give them the benefit of the doubt. I mean, you got to think that maybe they did try to stop that,
Right.
and it was too late. So, but none of the banks that have been hit have been disclosed. We don't know any of the banks. Destinations of the funds are not known publicly. In fact, details have been general in nature. So, what's the takeaway, Nick?
Well, all in all, I think the story really highlights the dangerous nature of insider threat, right? And when there is the potential for coercion, it may end up being an employee that you would have never suspected.
Well, yeah, and that doesn't mean that you need to go out and scrutinize every employee for reason to suspect them. But once you have suspicions, you really do need to follow up. Now, this also includes former employees. And how many times have we seen the stories where a former employee has sold access to systems because admins didn't remove their account access promptly? There's so many pieces at play that you and I could sit here and talk about this all day. But I think, our audience gets the gist. And, well, to be honest, we've got work to do.
Agreed. So let's go ahead and wrap this up until next time. The opinions expressed here are our own and do not in any way reflect the views of anyone or anything other than us. Thank you all for watching. We'd love to hear your thoughts on what we covered here today.
Do you agree, disagree? All feedback is welcome.
Like, share, comment, and
We will see you next time.